Important note, this is timeless and powerful wisdom that has influenced and improved the life of millions. Now that you have attracted it to your awareness, you must install it deep into your subconscious mind to experience a real change. Read the description below this video and choose the links among multiple options that will aid you in achieving the optimum results you seek. The journey to success is just one decision away. Thank you for listening and subscribing to Top Mindset Growth Channel.
This is the secret war between your conscious and subconscious mind. There is a war inside of you, not a war of nations, not of blood and politics, but a war more destructive than any battle fought with swords or bullets. It is the quiet, invisible war between two forces that live within your own mind, the conscious and the subconscious. And you are the battlefield. You feel it every time you decide to change your life, only to sabotage yourself days later. You feel it when you say, "I will become rich." But your bank account mocks you with overdrafts and unpaid bills. You feel it when you look in the mirror and whisper affirmations only to wake up in despair, wondering why nothing is changing. This war is the reason why desire burns bright one moment and flickers out the next. It's why you read every success book, attend every seminar, make every resolution, yet still feel shackled to the same invisible prison. Because what you consciously want, your subconscious does not yet believe. And until that alignment is forged, until your conscious thoughts command the loyalty of your subconscious mind, you will remain divided, torn, at war with yourself. Understand this truth. The subconscious is not your enemy. It is your most loyal servant, but it only obeys the instructions you've given it repeatedly, not the ones you whisper once and forget. It doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to emotionalized repetition. That is why men like Henry Ford, who had barely a formal education, could build an empire that shaped the industrial age, because his conscious decisions and subconscious beliefs walked in absolute harmony. Ford once said, "What you choose, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." He wasn't being clever. He was speaking spiritual law. The moment your conscious command, "I will succeed no matter what," becomes so emotionally intense, so vividly imagined, so deeply felt, the subconscious begins to obey. It reshapes your habits, your instincts, your reactions, your patterns. But if deep inside you believe you're unworthy of greatness, the subconscious will obey that too. It will find ways to sabotage your efforts to bring you home to the familiar prison of lack, mediocrity, and struggle. This is the secret war that destroys more dreams than poverty, disease, or bad luck ever could. You must become a general in this war, not a passive bystander. You must become ruthless in identifying the limiting beliefs buried in the trenches of your subconscious. The ones whispered to you by fearful parents, by teachers who didn't understand wealth, by religious institutions that confused suffering with virtue. Andrew Carnegie knew this war well. He didn't build a steel empire because he had the best education or the most resources. He built it because he rewrote the code of his subconscious mind until it believed he was destined for riches. And then reality adjusted to match. He once said, "Any idea that is held in the mind, that is emphasized, that is either feared or revered, will begin to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate physical form available. That is not metaphor, that is law. Your outer world is a printout of your inner programming, period." But here's the tragedy. Most people are fighting this war blind. They think the solution is more information, another strategy, another hack, another motivation video. But you do not win an internal war with external tools. You win it by turning within and reprogramming the battlefield itself. Every time you speak in alignment with faith, your subconscious listens. Every time you act as if your success is inevitable, it obeys. Every time you emotionally rehearse the future you want with clarity, conviction, and intensity, it shifts. But every time you say, I can't, every time you doubt, every time you entertain fear as fact, your subconscious embeds it like a soldier memorizing orders. The subconscious is the soil. Your thoughts are the seeds, and your emotions are the water. What are you planting today? Dr. Maxwell Maltz, the great mind behind psychocybernetics, revealed this truth decades ago, that the self-image, the mental picture you carry of yourself, sets the boundaries for what you can achieve. No man outgrows his self-image. No woman outruns her internal identity. You can read every book. You can scream every affirmation. But if your subconscious still sees you as broke, as unworthy, as destined for smallness, it will fight to keep you there, not out of malice, but out of loyalty to your programming. This is not mysticism. It's neuroscience. It's psychology. It's ancient spiritual law rediscovered by modern science. Albert Einstein once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." He understood that what you can see in the theater of your mind is far more powerful than the facts you collect in books, because the subconscious does not speak in logic. It speaks in images, emotions, and repetition. When you see yourself wealthy, not just in bank statements, but in posture and voice and presence, you begin to become that person. But this is where most fail. They try to think rich, but continue to feel poor. They say the words, but don't carry the energy. They write the affirmations, but don't believe the ink. That is why the conflict continues. The conscious says go, the subconscious pulls the brakes. Walt Disney, the master of imagination, built an empire not because he knew business, but because he believed so deeply in his inner world that the outer world had no choice but to follow. When banks denied him loans, when critics laughed at his dreams, when investors ran scared, his subconscious held the vision. He once said, it's kind of fun to do the impossible. To most, that sounds whimsical. To the reprogrammed mind, it's a declaration of truth. You must understand this. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what's real. That is your power. If you spend your days replaying failure, guess what becomes real? If you spend your nights rehearsing poverty, struggle, and rejection, what do you think you attract? But if you choose to see wealth, if you command your imagination to rehearse victory, if you emotionally charge your vision with faith and expectancy, the subconscious begins to bend. That is when the war turns, not with force, not with willpower alone, but with alignment. Because once your subconscious agrees, it no longer resists your desires. It supports them. It fights for your vision instead of against it. And when that happens, when belief and thought become one, you become unreasonable, unshakable, unbreakable. You walk with the certainty of a Rockefeller who saw monopolies before the world even understood what oil meant. You plan like a J.P. Morgan, who didn't just fund empires. He engineered them through clarity of intention. You invent like a Tesla who saw energy flowing through the air long before the world had the courage to believe. The war is not out there. It never was. The real war is within. And the one who masters that war, who brings their subconscious under conscious command, becomes unstoppable. Not because of luck, not because of privilege, but because they became one with their vision. Because they decided and believed. And when decision meets belief, the universe rearranges itself to comply. Thomas Edison understood this war better than any man of his time. 10,000 failures, 10,000 experiments that didn't work. But not once did he say he failed. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Do you see? His subconscious was never programmed for failure. He didn't feed it with the poison of self-doubt. He didn't rehearse defeat. Instead, he conditioned his mind to see every setback as a stepping stone, not a sign to stop. That is mastery. Edison didn't just invent the light bulb, he became the light by first switching it on inside his own mind, by holding the picture of success so fiercely that the world eventually had to catch up. You are not stuck because of your circumstances. You are stuck because of your programming. You are not broke because money is scarce. You are broke because your subconscious still thinks it's dangerous to be rich. And deep down it obeys the commands you've repeated since childhood, the ones your parents lived by, the ones your culture whispered in your ear, the ones school never challenged. But if Helen Keller, blind and deaf from the age of 19 months, could become an icon of global inspiration, what is your excuse? She rewrote the code. She tuned her subconscious to possibility, not limitation. And with nothing but imagination, discipline, and will, she turned silence into speech, darkness into light. You see, the subconscious is not bound by logic. It is bound by belief. You can argue for your limitations all day long, and you'll keep them. Or you can begin the real work, the sacred war, of retraining your inner mind. Joseph Murphy once wrote, "The subconscious mind is like a bank, a universal bank. It magnifies whatever you deposit in it." So the question is, what have you been depositing? Fear, scarcity, self-hate, doubt? Or have you been feeding it images of abundance, certainty, beauty, and courage? Because whether you realize it or not, you're always programming yourself. Every word, every thought, every emotion, every late-night fear and early morning worry, the subconscious is listening. You cannot lie to it. It knows what you feel, and feelings are the commands. That is why vague affirmations don't work, because you say them with your mouth, but the emotion behind them contradicts the words. You say, I am rich, but you feel broke. You say, I am powerful, but your posture screams submission. You say, I am grateful, but your heart aches with resentment. This is not how transformation happens. You must bring the emotional truth into alignment with your spoken word. Wallace D. Wattles, author of The Science of Getting Rich, said it plainly. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and a thought held consistently creates the thing that is imaged by the thought. That thinking stuff, the formless substance, is not just out there in the universe. It is within you. Your subconscious is the bridge between thought and form. When you discipline it, when you feed it deliberately, daily, relentlessly, you bend reality, but only if you persist. That's why most people never win this war. They surrender when the battlefield gets uncomfortable. They make a decision, but not a burning decision. They hold a vision, but not long enough for it to become belief. They act, but only until it gets hard, and then they call it fate. But Earl Nightingale, who studied this law more deeply, the most taught, we become what we think about most of the time. That's not philosophy, that's instruction. What are you thinking about most of the time? If the answer is fear, then fear is what you'll manifest. If the answer is envy, then lack is what you'll receive. But if you dare to think about purpose, about creation, about power, about vision, consistently, emotionally, with conviction, you will rise. And nothing can stop a man or woman who has reprogrammed their inner world. Charlie Chaplin once said, "You'll never find a rainbow if you're looking down." Simple words. But behind them is a universal law. What you focus on, you expand. When you focus on pain, it grows. When you focus on lack, it multiplies. When you dwell in victimhood, it becomes your identity. But when you shift the lens, when you focus on opportunity, on resilience, on gratitude, your subconscious begins to adapt. Not immediately, not overnight, but inevitably. Because the subconscious is not rigid. It is a garden. And you, my friend, are the gardener. And the soil does not care what seeds you plant. It simply grows them. This is why gratitude is not a motivational gimmick. It is a weapon in the war for your subconscious. Gratitude rewires the brain to search for blessings instead of problems. And what you search for, you will find. Discipline, too, is a spiritual force, not just a habit. When you do what you said you would do, even when it's hard, even when it's raining, even when no one claps, your subconscious takes notes. It says, this person follows through, this person does not fold, this person is a leader. And it begins to reflect that identity in every thought, every word, every cell of your being. That's when the shift happens, when you are no longer just pretending to be successful. You become it. Because your subconscious doesn't just follow what you say. It becomes what you are. James Allen wrote in, "As a man thinketh, you are today. Where your thoughts have brought you, you will be tomorrow where your thoughts take you." Every word, every belief, every emotion you allow into the subconscious is a command to the universe. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply running on a program that was never yours. But here's the greatest news. You can rewrite it. And once you do, the war ends. Not because you surrendered, but because you won. You were not born to live a life of quiet desperation. You were not placed on this earth to struggle paycheck to paycheck, addicted to fear, ruled by doubt, and enslaved by a mind that was programmed by people who had already given up on their dreams. You are here to rise. You are here to remember. You are here to reclaim the throne within your own soul and command your inner world like the master you were always meant to be. But first, you must understand the nature of the enemy. The subconscious does not change through force. It bends only to emotion, to faith, to repetition, to vision held with unrelenting intensity. That's how empires were built. Not by perfect men, not by people who had all the answers, but by men and women who dared to believe the invisible until it became visible. Rockefeller believed he was destined to control energy. Long before oil dominated the world, he saw it. He felt it. He moved in alignment with it. And so it became real. Carnegie believed that wealth wasn't an accident. It was a byproduct of belief, discipline, and organized thought. He taught that riches respond not to effort alone, but to conscious, deliberate, emotionally charged desire. Do you feel that in your life? Or are you still doubting the very power that breathes your thoughts into being? Your subconscious isn't asking for perfection, it's asking for consistency. You don't need to scream your affirmations from mountaintops. You need to whisper them with belief when no one is watching. You don't need to convince the world that you're changing. You need to convince yourself over and over, daily, hourly, until the new identity is so deeply embedded that the old version of you becomes a stranger. Ogmandino once wrote, "I will persist until I succeed." Simple words. But they carry within them the entire formula for rewriting the mind. Because repetition, spoken with faith, becomes law. You must persist, not just through failure, but through disbelief. Through the awkward phase where the new thoughts feel fake. Through the friction of old identity clashing with new vision. That's where the war is won. Not when life is easy, but when the storm comes and your mind refuses to retreat. Churchill, standing before the fires of war, did not cower. He said, "We shall never surrender." Apply that same energy inward. Tell your subconscious, "I will never surrender this vision. I will never stop believing. I will never stop speaking wealth, health, power, purpose into existence until my very soul is sculpted into the image I've chosen." That's not delusion. That is creation. And all creation begins in the invisible. Tesla once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Your thoughts are vibration. Your emotions are vibration. Your identity is vibration. And your subconscious mind is the transmitter. It takes the signal of who you are and radiates it into the field. And that field, the quantum universe, sends back experiences that match the signal. So, if you want to change your life, stop fighting the outer world. Change the frequency of your inner one. That means stop saying, "I'll believe it when I see it." Start saying, "I'll see it when I believe it." Because your mind doesn't follow reality. Reality follows your mind. Charles F. Haanel, in the Master Key System, wrote, "The subconscious mind cannot argue controversially. If it has accepted a suggestion, it acts on it. It works by deduction only. It accepts the premises which have been laid down for it and acts accordingly. That means it does not question you. If you say, 'I am a magnet for abundance,' it starts moving toward abundance, so long as you feel it. If you say, 'I am always unlucky,' it makes sure that pattern repeats. It's not trying to punish you. It's simply following the orders you've given it, often without even knowing you were giving them. And those orders have been spoken for years, maybe decades, quietly, subtly, in thoughts like, 'I'm just not good with money. I'm too old to change. People like me don't win. Success is for someone else.' But you can end that programming right now, right here, with a decision. The same way you once accepted the false, you can now install the true. You can say, 'My past does not define me. I command my subconscious to serve my highest good. I am wealthy in thought, wealthy in being, wealthy in identity, and the world must conform. But you must believe it. You must feel it before the evidence shows up. You must walk like someone who has already won, not wait for permission.' And that is where 99% stop. They wait. They wait for signs, for proof, for permission, for circumstances to change. But the greats, the ones whose names history cannot erase, they moved before the evidence arrived. They believed, and then the doors opened. They acted, and then the world aligned. You must become that bold. You must make being unreasonable a virtue. You must look at the world with its statistics, its warnings, its cynicism, and say, 'That may be true for others, but I am reprogramming my mind, and that makes me different.' Because once the subconscious is on your side, there is no external force that can stop you. You're no longer torn, no longer divided. The war ends, and in its place, a new force rises. The power of the unified mind. When your conscious mind sets the vision and your subconscious enforces it without hesitation, you become more than just a person with goals. You become a force of nature. You've seen people like that before. The ones who walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without saying a word. The ones who speak and the world listens. The ones who move with the calm certainty of a king or queen whose crown is unseen, but undeniable. They're not guessing. They're not hoping. They are not begging life to be kind. They have already won the war inside. That's why their actions are decisive. That's why their presence carries weight. That's why opportunity seems to chase them, because their subconscious mind is no longer sabotaging them. It is fueling them, and you can become that person. You already are. You just haven't remembered yet. You forgot that you are the architect, not the victim. You forgot that you are the master, not the slave. You forgot that your circumstances are results, not definitions. This is your moment of remembrance right now. This is the moment where the false god of limitation crumbles. This is the moment you stop arguing for your smallness. This is the moment you choose to be reborn, not in body, but in mind. Because the only rebirth that matters is the one where your identity dies and your truth rises. Lincoln knew it when the whole world tried to bury him in ridicule, in loss, in defeat. He held the higher image. He believed in something greater, and through that belief, a fractured nation was pulled from its knees. Faith is not blind. Faith is vision sharpened by conviction, and that's what the subconscious responds to. Not empty repetition, but repetition infused with belief that is why affirmations work for some and fail for others. It is not the words. It is the energy behind the words. Say, I am successful, with doubt, and your subconscious will ignore you. Say, I am successful, with certainty, and the universe starts to rearrange. It's not magic. It's mind science. It's spiritual alignment. It's universal law. But it requires discipline. Because programming your subconscious is not a one-time event. It is a daily ritual. It is the devotion of a warrior to their craft. It is the prayer of the visionary to their mission. Every day you choose to focus, you plant seeds. Every day you visualize, you water them. Every day you act in faith, especially when the outer world hasn't caught up yet. You begin to harvest. This is not positive thinking. This is constructive thinking. There is a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it. Are you ready, not just with words, but with identity? Because the subconscious does not deliver what you want. It delivers who you are. That's why transformation begins not with a goal, but with a decision to change your identity. You don't become successful by chasing success. You become successful by installing the identity of a successful person in your thoughts, in your self-talk, in your habits, in your vibration, and letting the world adjust. It will. But only when you stop negotiating with the old self. There can be no compromise. The old identity, the one shaped by fear, by failure, by generational poverty, must be buried. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot live in faith and speak in doubt. You cannot seek abundance and worship fear. You must choose, because the war ends the moment you pick a side and then refuse to betray it. You will be tempted to look back, to return to the familiar, to water the weeds instead of the flowers. But you are no longer a civilian in this war. You are a commander. Your mind is your battlefield. Your thoughts are your weapons. Your emotions are your compass. And your vision is the flag you plant on the highest hill, the one you will not retreat from. Not when it gets hard. Not when you're tired. Not when you're afraid. Especially not then. Because fear is the final soldier the old self sends to reclaim you. But fear has no power when faced with a mind on fire with belief. You must become that fire. Burn away the lies, the limitations, and the excuses passed down to you like heirlooms of mediocrity. You are not your history. You are not your wounds. You are not your parents' mistakes or society's projections. You are pure, unfiltered potential, sculpted by thought, commanded by will, and powered by a mind that has no limits except those you accept. Earl Nightingale said it best. All you need is the plan, the roadmap, and the courage to press on to your destination. The plan is your vision. The roadmap is your habits. And the courage that comes from knowing you are no longer at war with yourself. That is the peace you've been searching for. Not comfort, not complacency, but alignment. The kind of peace that comes when the conscious mind and the subconscious are finally on the same team, moving in the same direction, singing the same song, waging the same campaign for the life you were meant to live. And when that happens, when the inner war is over, the outer world must yield, because there is no resistance strong enough to stop a soul that is fully integrated, fully awake, fully aligned with its purpose. So rise, not with noise, but with conviction, not with fear, but with fire, not with apology, but with certainty, because this is not just a motivational moment. This is a transformation. This is the day the war ends and the empire begins. The empire you build not in the world, but first within. You must keep in mind the following. Repetition is the sculptor of your destiny. You will not become what you visualize once. You will become what you visualize consistently, daily, obsessively, until your brain starts adjusting your behaviors, your standards, your environment to match that inner self-image. That's not magic. That's biology. So listen this lesson again and again and again until it gets installed in your brain and in your subconscious mind, until you realize the results you seek.